I rise to speak on the important issue of the day. Sometimes complex challenges present clear and compelling choices. Mr. President, that's the case with the fiscal challenge before us today. We have a choice between delay and disruption or progress and accord, and the nation's eyes are upon us. We need to vote to keep our government running, to pay our military, and at the same time take essential steps to tame our uncontrolled spending and deficit. Most importantly, we need to ensure that our men and women in uniform continue to receive their well-earned pay while we undertake the work of balancing America's books, and they undertake the vital work of defending our nation, both here at home and abroad. In that regard, I'm proud to be one of the sponsors of a bill introduced by Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson that will make sure that that happens even after the work of the 111th Congress is finished. I'm also pleased to report that we are now up to 74 co-sponsors. But in the final analysis, we need to reduce our overall spending, which Americans recognize is necessary. Necessary because every day we delay, we are spending ourselves $4 billion deeper into debt. Right now, this fiscal year, we are on a path to spend $3.7 trillion, but we're taking in only $2.2 trillion in revenue, leaving a deficit of more than $1.5 trillion. To make up for that shortfall, the federal government is borrowing 40 cents out of every dollar that we spend, with a national debt of more than $14 trillion. Our largest lender is China, which now holds more than $1 trillion in American bonds. No American family would practice that kind of fiscal management, and neither should our country. Reducing our debt and deficit is something the American people understand and support, because the American people are the ones suffering the impacts. Nearly 14 million of our countrymen and women are out of work, and another 8 million are underemployed because they've had their hours cut back, or they can't afford, or they can't find a full-time job. Sadly, 1 million more have just stopped looking. As private investment has plummeted, unemployment has climbed sharply to levels that we haven't seen in decades. And for those who are fortunate enough to be working, the American dream is getting more and more difficult to achieve. In response to growing inflationary pressure, the Federal Reserve Bank now says that interest rates are likely to rise at the end of the year to tighten our money supply. Every % increase in interest rates adds $140 billion to our debt. Higher interest rates will erode the income of every American and make it harder to buy a home, a car, or a college education. Spending more won't help them. In fact, spending more will just prolong the problem. In the 1990s, when government spending as a share of GDP shrank, employment grew. And despite the surge in government spending over the past 2 years, unemployment still hovers stubbornly at about 9%. We don't need more public spending. What we need is more private investment. When private investment grows, unemployment shrinks. The American people understand all of this, and that's why they want us to arrive at a plan that keeps our government running, that respects the sacrifices of our military in real terms, and puts us back on the road to fiscal health. We owe it to these hardworking men and women to bring the 2011 budget to a reasonable and realistic conclusion, and then move on to the important matters that still lie before us, including the 2012 budget. That's where we can address all of the substantive and urgent issues that we must resolve to get America's financial house in order. Issues like making sure that we have a prudent level of spending, reforming our tax code, and making entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare solvent and more secure for our seniors both now and long into the future. Mr. President, we owe that not just to our current constituents, but to future generations of Americans. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from California.
Thank you so much.